Thank you, sir. And now invite Shri Atmaram Nadkarni ji, Additional Solicitor General of India, to please uh, bless us with his words of wisdom.
My colleague and practicing lawyer, Mr. Sandeep Mahapatra, State Secretary of the Adhivatta Parishad, Mr. Rahul Chaudhary, Madam, I'm familiar with your name, Aditi. Okay. I think we have been communicating on the text message. Aditi. My friend, Mr. Shekhar, Senior Advocate, and dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. I think the entire constitution has been so beautifully covered by Sandeep ji that there is hardly any topic for me to, which he has skipped, and for me to, deal with. But of course, constitution is such a lengthy document, and the Indian constitution is the lengthiest document. But before I go to the constitution, let me convey the greetings of the festive season Navaratri to you. A very happy Navaratri to you. May God Durga bless you with peace, good health, wealth and happiness. In fact, there's something related to the constitution, but I'm digressing a bit. India is the only country where people fight to be called as backward. The agitation is, call me backward. Normally it should have been the other way around. The reverse concept is, something which is acceptable in a civilized world or democracy, but in India, and the cause for it is the constitution. See, there are many plus and positive points of the constitution, but there are many negative points. Frankly, I am not against reservation. Reserve it for those who are socially and economically backward. But don't do it just as a matter of largesse. In fact, Supreme Court has also spoken about it. An IAS officer's son, a person who is very healthy and wealthy, his son getting a priority over a meritorious student. After all, merit is the test while choosing the best. And if at all you have any interpretation for Article 14 about equality, give this interpretation rather than other interpretations of arbitrariness. This is highly arbitrary. I was digressing to a topic about the ladies. So there was a symposium in 1999 when I first became Advocate General. And the symposium was the ladies were fighting for the gender discrimination. And they said, we want equality. So I was invited, knowing that it was a controversial topic. My wife warned me, she said, don't go for this topic, it will end you into controversy. I said, it's all right, I've just been invited in all public forum, let me see what I can do. So when I went there to the function, one side was supporting the gender discrimination, namely, the man is superior. The other side said, no, everybody is equal. The women and the men, they are equal. So they asked me, which side do you belong to? I said, somewhere in between. Normally I should be sitting. He said, no, then you'll be a fence sitter, then you should take. I said, okay, you make me sit wherever you want to. So they made me sit on the man's side, which, where most of the people were saying that men are superior. And they were not allowing ladies to have an equal right. So when my turn came to speak, I said, I do not agree with this proposition about the man being superior or the ladies being equal. So all the press reporters who were behind immediately came in front. Cameramans came in front, clicked the photograph, because tomorrow they wanted to blast in the newspaper that Advocate General of the state saying, and anything against, it was a Bharatiya Janata Party government or a Congress government, I don't remember, Bharatiya Janata Party. So to just highlight it in the paper on the headlines, that Advocate General says this. It's only when I started the topic, I said, I don't believe in the statement that ladies are equal to man. I believe that ladies are far superior to man. There was a pin drop silence, including the ladies. They did not clap, but they were shell shocked to hear that particular statement. That is what is the equality under the constitution. You see the mythology. What do we do in Navratri? We worship goddess Durga. All the gods, the male gods, they failed. They were beaten up by those Rakshasas and Asuras. They were trashed. They had nothing else to do, so they went to the Lady Durga and prostrated in front. Now please save us. Same thing about Kali, Shumb and Ishumb and all this right there. So time and again, for example, I'll give you a simple example. The 9 months of pregnancy which a lady bears, ask any male to hold the child for 9 minutes in his hand, the father. The 10th minute he'll look out for his sister, mother, somebody or the maid servant to leave it. Not that he's a heartless father, he loves his child. But then he can't. Another example I'll give you. The physiological concept of the women going through the periods for 4 days in a month. Ask the man, let his finger bleed for 4 minutes, he'll bring the whole world down. You give the wife a home, a house, she'll make a home out of it. But this has been, but we have never listened to it, because we somehow import the constitutional concept of equality. And the women also perhaps have not thought over it, that they are superior. It's a God's gift and grace for them, but they are claiming equality under the Constitution. Whenever they are asked, why do you claim equality under the Constitution? Constitution Article 14 speaks about equality. That was the argument at that symposium. I thought that was a complete misnomer about the whole Constitution. It is like just now Sandeep Mahapatra ji said that the courts have intervened, correct? Courts have intervened. They have intervened for matters where the government has failed. Government failed to protect women in sexual harassment cases, so the courts came out with an interim measure saying that till you bring out a legislation, these shall be the direction. Government failed to take cognizance and protect environment or ecological things, therefore the court stepped in. They started involving and evolving various concepts by an interpretative process. But it has gone to such an extent that today the courts perhaps think that they can interfere even in mere administrative and executive matters, which is wrong. You can't put the subjective satisfaction of the executive or the legislature to objective tests, merely because the sitting judge's ideology is it goes in a particular fashion. See, when the legislature or the executive fail to do a particular thing, the judicial process should have corrected it, saying that, look, what you have done is wrong, we stop you from doing it. But what the judiciary did at that point of time is substituted its own views, as if they are the lawmakers. Undoubtedly, Article 142 gives you the right that your law is binding on all courts in India. That doesn't say it is binding on all authorities, government, citizens, etc. Which means you don't have a lawmaking power as such. You may interpret it today saying that it's a lawmaking power here. It's not a lawmaking power. It's a matter of respect which is given to the final court. You have taken it to such a level that you want to call it a lawmaking power. The lawmaking power is only given to the legislature, and in emergent times it is given to the executive in the name of the governor or the president to issue ordinances. Otherwise, the lawmaking power has not been given by we the people of India to anyone else. What the court lays down is the law, that is the process of interpretation. So when we deal with constitution, we must also not forget that that is the grand norm. It is the mother of all laws. All laws have to normally yield to what the constitution says. There may be various philosophies like the basic structure philosophy, which out of 11 judges in Keshwananda Bharati's case, or 13 judges, 6 fell this side, 6 fell this side, one was silent. Justice Khanna, he said basic feature, and that is how the whole 12 went with the basic feature of the constitution. But that's the unfortunate thing in India. Indira Sawhney judgment, the Indira Sawhney judgment, 9 judges constituted that bench. 9 judges delivered 9 different judgments. Every one of them saying that his or her judgment is the majority judgment, that is the law. Look at the American Supreme Court, 3 pages, and the entire judgment is laid down. And there the judges, mind you, are elected. They are not even appointed or nominated in this fashion as we do it in India. Look at the collegium process, the judgment. The Constitution of India speaks about the president, that is the constitutional sense of the term, the president, consulting the Chief Justice of India. Now the Chief Justice of India is like a father figure in the judiciary. When he is consulted, obviously it is expected that he will do his consultations in-house. The Supreme Court came out with Supreme Court on Advocates Association, that judgment. No, we must have a collegium. The collegium will decide. Where do you get this collegium in the Constitution? It's blissfully silent. Maybe it's a good thing. Maybe it's the best thing that could happen to the country. True it is. Justice Kannan was also a product of the collegium system. Nobody can rule that out, that there could be some black ships everywhere. So it is not that you are 100% right merely because of the Constitution. Of course, our government came out with the National Judicial Commission, which for different reasons came to be struck down by Supreme Court. But an effort must be made to bring about these things. Number 3, tampering with the Constitution. The Constitution has not failed us as was drafted by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's team that time. We have failed the Constitution. In a short history, in 2015, I think there were 100 amendments to the Constitution, which no other country has these kind of records. Perhaps Pakistan may have, I am not aware about it. But at least in India, the number of amendments, for anything and everything, you move a constitutional amendment. Mrs. Indira Gandhi, late Prime Minister, moved 4 amendments and passed them overnight. Overnight. So you have this, all this can happen only in India. Then we have the interesting concept of fundamental rights. Everyone interprets in a different way. A Supreme Court judge comes, he is environmental minded, so he says in Article 21, this is included, ecology. Another judge comes, that is included. Third judge comes, no, it should not have petrol, it should be CNG. Then suddenly some environmentalists come and say, look, CNG is also entering this one. Now what do we do? We are stuck. Now what do we do? So it's a matter of ideological process by which you are tampering with the Constitution in your interpretative mode. You certainly are not allowed to do that. You have to apply the Constitution as it stands. You may have an interpretative process to remain and to catch up with the progressive system. That what is progress? Today we have, from an industrial age, we have marched into an information age. All right, so digitization, these, that, you can lay down rights. But at times we waste our times. Culpable hours, important hours are wasted. For example, right to privacy. 3 weeks or 4 weeks, 7 judges dealing with it. What right to privacy is? You ask a 5th standard student, he will tell you what privacy is. Will he not? And what have you laid down? To what extent can you stretch the right of privacy? Can a person go into the room, lock his room? Can he smoke drugs there? Can he? Please tell me, can he? But can you open his room and find out? Why should he not put up the right to privacy as a defense there? See, you're going to have all this. So when you do one thing, it is not. That's why the lawmaking function is left to the legislature. Because the legislature has so many contributions. There are so many departments of the government which give their contribution. At times a bill is referred to a select committee where also there are so many things which are gone into. They invite lawyers, they invite other people also to contribute. So you can't just have a lawmaking function or laying down the Constitution by just few persons who profess their own ideology. That having said, I'm not saying that in fact the Supreme Court has done a yeoman service to the country. Except that in matters of emergency it failed to intervene. Some of the Bombay High Court judges intervened, but Supreme Court did not intervene. The ADM Jabalpur, I think, now has been touched upon. But otherwise it was not. So we have this one. But Supreme Court has risen and has delivered judgments in many matters. Husainara Khatun, where the Bihar government, in the police custody en masse they were blinded out. The Bihar government's ordinance issuing powers The way the ordinances were issued and the administration was run only on ordinances. Several things where the Supreme Court has intervened. Supreme Court has even struck down certain legislations, etc. Environmental matters, Supreme Court is doing a wonderful job. Today, in fact, one of the matters which the Supreme Court is dealing with the wetland matters. It's a very good thing because some of the governments have failed to take steps in various this one. So these are good things which the Supreme Court has been doing. But Constitution as such, it is a mother of laws and it has to be dealt with and touched upon with a lot of maturity. Unfortunately, we are simply tinkering with the Constitution. As I said, 100 and odd amendments, it only shows a lack of political maturity because governments after governments have been just making constitutional amendments. How many things will you provide for in the Constitution? And mind you, Britain has an unwritten Constitution. And yet, the total amendments moved by them are some 36 or 37 till this year. So these are the differences. It all depends upon how you deal with things. Whenever you deal in life with anything, be it your profession, be it your at home, be it dealing with your wife or a wife dealing with husband, a lot of maturity is required at the end of the day. And if at all our Constitution professes anything, it does speak of maturity when it speaks of fundamental duties and fundamental rights. Our Constitution is a beautifully drafted document. It has got the preamble, which gives you the complete idea about the Constitution. It has got the introductory citizenship rights. It calls Bharat, that is a union of states. So you can even have two states technically, North India and South India. Okay. Number 3, it deals with fundamental rights, so beautifully defined. It might have been interpreted in many ways. Then you have the fundamental duties. Then you have the directive principles of state policy. Then you have the national level judiciary, the state level judiciary. Then you have the national level of legislature, the state level of legislature. You have the national level of executive, the state level of executive. Then you have the controller and the auditor general. Then you have state and union relationship, the administrative, the executive, legislative and the financial relationship. So these are beautiful topics which the Constitution has dealt with. All that we have to do is, at the end of the day, we need a little bit of patience, little bit of inclusiveness and a strong maturity to deal with the Constitution. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I thank the organizers for inviting me to the topic and thank you so much.